Well, howdy, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lauren Musica Show, your favorite update in the battle for life, family, and freedom. So excited once again to have you with me. I'm Lauren Musica, attorney and human rights advocate, and I serve as president CEO of Sidewalk Advocates for Life, the nation's largest peaceful sidewalk outreach organization. So let me start by putting this out there right away. I am all for women's rights. I'm a strong woman myself in a typically male-dominated industry. I'm an attorney, right? I wholeheartedly support the right of a woman to choose her goals and achieve those goals, to nurture a family while finding a balance with whatever additional calling she may have on her life, and in that, choose a career. But in our culture today, there's a bizarre phenomenon that can best be described as toxic feminism. Toxic feminists, as I call them, not only shout their abortion, they joke about it because it has no meaning to them. Toxic feminists often view marriage as this restrictive prison and motherhood and babies as parasites that are invading women's bodies and ruining their lives. They often refuse to understand the natural connection between sexuality and fertility, natural fertility. And this perspective has seemingly infiltrated our culture. So my question is, since when did the death of a preborn baby become a joke or nothing? Since when did conceiving a child become a horror too great to be born? So, what's the solution here? Well, I'd like to suggest to you that it's not as complicated as we might think. The antidote is a holistic feminism that celebrates a woman's natural fertility, where family life is cradled in the culture while we celebrate the right of a mother to pursue her dreams. To talk with us about all this and how we restore feminism as God intended it are a couple of my good friends and colleagues fighting the good fight on this particular front. That is Leah Jacobson and Mark Cavaliere. So let me go ahead and introduce our special guests. Hailing from central Minnesota, Leah has been working with young people and mothers since 2000. Leah founded the Guiding Star Project in 2011 after feeling called to help women and families by providing resources that honor natural law and promote holistic feminism. She seeks to create guiding star centers to serve as beacons of hope, joy, and truth, safe havens that uphold human dignity in all stages of life. Leah lives in Minnesota with her family and works as a board-certified lactation consultant. As a mother to 7 children, she has a special interest in supporting young women as they transition into their roles as new mothers. Mark Cavaliere is the founder and CEO of Southwest Coalition for Life, a pro-life nonprofit that began with him praying on the sidewalk outside of abortion facilities in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Through innovative outreach and compassionate grassroots mobilization, Mark has witnessed the closure of 3 abortion facilities across West Texas and southern New Mexico. They did it all peacefully and prayerfully. So beautiful. Today, their mission has grown into 4 major divisions: Guiding Star Southwest Women's Birth and Wellness Centers, the Lily Pad Maternity Home, Her Care Connection Mobile Unit and Sidewalk Outreach, and Southwest Coalition Action, including prayer and lobbying efforts, all working together to help moms be heroes and end the trauma of abortion. Let's go ahead and welcome to the program, Leah and Mark. Hey guys, Leah, how are you?
I'm so good, Lauren. It's so nice to reconnect with you.
Yeah, great to have you. I can't wait to have this discussion with you. And Mark, how are you doing this afternoon?
I am doing very well. In particular, that it's my birthday today, so it's a really good day.
Mark, I didn't know this.
I
Happy
figured I would.
Wow.
I figured that would make for a fun surprise for the air.
Well, this is actually going to air on a different day from your birthday.
Oh, that's true.
So happy belated birthday. I should have also
celebrate twice.
There you go. Yeah. Good morning. It'll air in the morning, and happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
We are glad you came into the world. Both of you are so precious to me and to our movement, the pro-life, pro-family movement. You're doing incredible work. I can't wait to unpack this. And I thought to myself, man, we only have 1 podcast episode for this. We might need like 4, right? We'll have to have you on again at the very least. Okay, so Leah, let's go ahead and start with you. I'd love for you to tell us about the vision for Guiding Star centers, because it covers some of what's going on in pregnancy centers, but it's so much more. And so I'd love to hear how you got that all started and what the inspiration for that was.
Well, Lauren, in your introduction, you said that this really is a lot simpler than maybe we think it is to fight this kind of culture of toxic feminism, a culture where we really have blamed women's fertility and women's bodies for a lot of problems that it's just really not our body's problem. It's a culture's problem for not accepting and understanding how women's bodies naturally work, what the original function and intentions were for, the male and the woman, the man and woman to come together. What does this actually what does it actually look like when it's done properly? Does it create human flourishing? Does it create happiness? And my belief is that yes, when we allow nature and we allow our bodies to guide us, that we're going to be profoundly fulfilled and happy. And so really that is the vision for Guiding Star. It came out of the heart of a campus minister. I used to run the campus ministry program at the University of Minnesota Duluth, and it was in dealing with young women and young newlywed couples, engaged couples, as they were learning about their bodies and their fertility and their ability to create life, recognizing the incredible amount of fear and misinformation that they had not been led properly as children and as teenagers, as young adults, to really even understand their bodies. And so Guiding Star really was fueled from that place of, we deserve better information and knowledge for young women. And when they have it, when we give them the information that they deserve, it is their birthright to understand their fertility. Women should not be afraid of becoming pregnant. We should not fear motherhood and breastfeeding and these things that are very natural to us. And when we give proper information in the right context, I think it changes culture. It really is a lot simpler than we sometimes think these problems are.
Yeah. The way I look at it is we're just going crunchy. We're going back to the basics, right? We're going back to the roots. Absolutely. Mark, I would love to hear from you and how, when you heard that message, you were inspired to take that perspective and have it, and I mean this in the best way possible, infiltrate every aspect of your ministry, right? So how did the Southwest Coalition for Life come to take up this vision and apply it even to your activism in your pregnancy help ministry?
Sure. Well, it was about 10 and a half years ago that I got started doing, 40 Days for Life and Sidewalk Advocates for Life. And it was not long after your ministry got started and you helped us get launched there on the sidewalk. And at this, I was there on the sidewalk, but I'm seeing all these women who are at a point where they feel they have no other option than to go in and to have their children destroyed, their motherhood destroyed. And I was thinking, like, how do we get ahead of this problem? Like, this is we're too late, what was it that led them to feel this? And at the same time, I was journeying alongside my wife through the early years of our marriage, and we now have 6 children, but just in the first couple that we had seen, really seeing how she was treated in the name of women's healthcare, how she carried trauma in the name of women's healthcare. And really seeing these things start to overlap. And I remember seeing online this vision that was cast for something called these Guiding Star centers. And I remember looking at this little mock-up of like a floor plan and seeing that not only did they have the pregnancy help that we're used to with, ultrasounds and pregnancy tests and material support, but that was just like 1/4 of the building. Oh, on the other side, there was like rooms for fertility education and lactation support, and a chapel for like reproductive trauma and loss. And there was even like a child watch, like a drop-in child watch, so that moms could actually take the time to get their health needs met and take the classes that were being offered. But then in the corner, I remember seeing, full medical space, including birthing suites. And I remember thinking, that's the end game. Like, here we were as a new couple, like trying to navigate this field and, constantly being referred around town and, not always finding providers that were encouraging or supportive of our, fertility and pregnancy and childbirths. And to see like this one-stop shop kind of super center, like everything under one roof. I remember thinking that is the end game. Like, if a community the size of Las Cruces had something like that, abortion would not be a sustainable business. And so that became our 10-year goal.
That's so beautiful. And I think about when I'm out on the sidewalk and we are really helping a woman, giving her options and resources. We typically send her to our pregnancy centers, which outnumber abortion facilities more than 4-1. They're amazing. But I'll tell you, as a sidewalk advocate, when I have a Guiding Star Center nearby, I know, being that it's the one-stop shop, that I can send every type of client to the Guiding Star Center, right? It's so much easier than kind of piecemealing sometimes how to fill those needs that bring a woman often to the abortion facility. Let's dig in a little deeper here. What does holistic feminism mean to each of you? Let me start with you, Leah, and then go to Mark. You alluded to the fact that there's a design, and I think at least all three of us believe that that design is not on accident, that it's there for a reason. And you mentioned the desire to promote human flourishing, that surprise, surprise, God may actually want us to be happy, right? And to flourish. So Leah, let's get your thoughts on that and then move to Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a book called Wholistic Feminism, holistic with a W, because it's this idea of wholeness, that when we embrace and accept and look to the body and to nature as a guide as to what God really intended, that we do find happiness, we do find joy, we do find fulfillment, we feel whole. And what's happened with this toxic feminism that you were talking about at the beginning is really it's the dissection of the human person. It's the separation of all these aspects of womanhood and saying, well, that part of you is irrelevant. And it's really fascinating in the women's healthcare field how parts of womanhood have been, elevated and sort of, put on pedestals, and other parts have been completely thrown away. So in my profession as a lactation consultant, we've seen just this very fascinating overemphasis, in a sense, on breast is best. Breastfeeding is like protected, and it's got legal protections, and it's got Surgeon General, guides on how to encourage breastfeeding and how to make a baby-friendly hospital. And so like this function of a woman's body has been very much so elevated and very protected. And then we see fertility, which has really just been trashed, where the standard practice is to alter and suppress and destroy fertility. And childbirth is somewhere in between. Like, we don't really know how to fix maternal mortality rates. And so to me, a holistic feminism, a holistic women's movement would say every part of a woman's body, all of her natural functions, her ability to ovulate, her ability to gestate, her ability to ovulate and lactate, that these things are all really good, and that they should be protected and elevated in our healthcare setting, culturally, in our laws, just how we're set up as a society to really help women flourish. It's saying it's not ever acceptable to throw part of her away.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful thought. Powerful thought. Mark, you are a father, you're a husband, you're married to a woman. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, to me, it gets to the root of everything. We always talk about this, that abortion is this symptom of much deeper cultural issues. And when I go back actually in reading John Paul II's, Evangelium Vitae, the Gospel of Life, he coins this phrase of saying there really needs to be a new feminism that really honors the feminine genius without being in competition with men. And that's what I think Leah's book finally does, is it defines that. To me, there's a quote that I think summarizes all of this beautifully, is what we need to get back to in our culture. It's actually from a Catholic cardinal, Joseph Cardinal Mazzenti. He says that the most important person on earth is a mother. She cannot claim the honor of having built Notre Dame Cathedral, but she need not. She can build something more magnificent than any cathedral, a dwelling place for an immortal soul, the tiny perfection of her baby's body. Even the angels have not been blessed with such a grace. They cannot share in God's creative miracle to bring new saints to heaven. Only a human mother can. Mothers are closer to God as the creator than any other human creature. God joins forces with mothers in performing this act of creation. What on God's earth is more glorious than this, to be a mother? And I often will say that I really think we're not going to ever see a true reverence for life in our culture until we have a reverence for the life bearer. We've completely lost respect for womanhood, for motherhood, where women themselves don't even understand and respect their own, Guiding Star, we talk a lot about, these superpowers of being a woman, of ovulation and gestation and lactation, like to really join forces with God in nurturing new life, and that's what we've lost. And so I look at my own wife and our journey alongside her, and I realized, my role, even the word matrimony, in the Latin mater munis, like it means the call to motherhood. So matrimony between a man and a woman is centered around motherhood. My role as her husband is to protect and defend her and her children. And that's what we've lost. We've completely lost the meaning of relationships. We've lost the meaning of our identities of male and female. And so really this idea of holistic feminism, whole person care for women, for motherhood. Yes. And you know, a lot of times people will point out, we don't want to leave out the men. We need fatherhood. And that's true. But again, the very core of matrimony is motherhood. And so if we're not building up that reverence for motherhood, for womanhood, then there's nothing for men to feel called into action. And we've seen this before. I remember there was even a secular birth center where they had testimonies being shared. And at the end, a husband stood up and said, by going through the education that this facility, you know, taught and her, being the birth support person and being taught how to do that, I discovered my God-given purpose to protect and defend my wife and child in their most vulnerable moment. And it was because of that core of motherhood.
Oh, so beautiful, and beautiful to hear a man say all of that. How precious. That's awesome. Let me ask you, Mark, and then go to Leah. Why do you think the culture is missing this beauty? Why are they rejecting it? Why are they running from it? Like what is going on here, and what's the remedy?
When you talk about rejecting this, to me, the most alarming statistic is that 62% of the women who are having abortions already have children. The majority of women having abortions are mothers. And as we've talked to them, we've started to realize that they're oftentimes feeling like, I just can't go through this again. Oftentimes they've been through some kind of birth trauma or postpartum struggles, or they're they're a single mom and they have a toddler and they're like, I can't do it. They're overwhelmed. They don't feel confident in their abilities. They don't. So that's what we're missing as the culture. Is we have we talk about, oh yes, yay, for single moms and yay womanhood, but there's actually, what does it actually look like to support a woman in her unique role of being a mom and her fertility and her pregnancy and her childbirth. Like that's what we need to get to the root of, and that's the goal. That's what a guiding star is there for all women, so that every woman, again, if 62% of women having abortions already have children, they probably were not abortion vulnerable with their first child, but something about that experience with her birth and her postpartum time made her abortion vulnerable for her next child. And so we need to be fixing the healthcare services and the support that's available for all moms, so that they know there's a place they can go. So and that it was empowering and it was joyful, so that they know they're actually excited when they're pregnant again. Say, I know where I can go, and it's going to be a beautiful experience again.
Yeah, yeah. You talked about, I want to say this was at your center, like a couple that had come in. I believe that this was you, right? A couple had come in and they were pretty sure they were just going to have one or two, and suddenly decided that they were going to have 5 kids. Can you share that story real quick?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, because we have our 4 different divisions, our sidewalk outreach division met this mom on the sidewalk at the abortion facility. They were able to help her change her mind and get her to our Guiding Star Center. And the mom chose life. And so fast forward a year, and she comes back in with her husband. And through that experience, they actually ended up getting married, of inviting him into this process to be there for her during her pregnancy and childbirth. They get married. And then they're in a year later, they have this little boy with this big head of hair and big, beautiful brown eyes. And, but even the husband, they're saying, we can never have more than this one child, because and he even said, I can never put my wife through that again. It was the medical experience, that it was very traumatic. He felt like he couldn't do anything to help her. They're still paying off the medical bills. He just said, I can never put her through that again. So abortion was there. And here we are thinking, wait, we've already been through this before with the counseling sessions. But this time we were able to say, well, hold on a minute. Let's walk you downstairs and show you the birthing suites that we're expanding to, that we have midwives that we're working with now and lactation consultants. And they teared up and they almost couldn't believe that this was really available. But they said, if this is really available to us this time, not only did they change their mind and choose life, that they actually said, we actually want to have 5 more babies. So they went from one and done to we want a big family of 5 or 6 kids, solely because of the birth experience and the support for mom during pregnancy and childbirth. And that's the key, because if we're asking a woman not to have an abortion, we're asking her to go through a childbirth and long postpartum period. So are we saying, okay, choose life, And then you have to navigate this complex, often scary and traumatic medical system, and then come back when the baby's born and we've got some diapers for you? Or are we actually going to walk alongside her through this decision that we want her to make?
Love that. Yeah. And it's a special way for the pro-life movement to still be there for her after she has the baby. So important. Leah, what would you say to that? Like, what is going on with the culture right now? Because to me, this is just going back to an all organic view of motherhood and womanhood and everything. It's good to be crunchy, right? Like what's going on? What are we missing? What are we so afraid of?
Well, I think to build on what Mark was talking about there, yes, there is trauma. There is something very broken in our women's health system right now. And there is a lack of resources and a lack of good maternity care coverage and a lack of good policy. That's all part of it. But I personally think that at the heart of all of this, way deep down, is a very deep internalized shame that women are ashamed. And even going back for that second baby, 62% have, that are looking for abortions have a baby. I'm expecting my 8th baby right now. And I can tell you with my first couple babies, when I would come back in and the nurses would say, don't you know how this happens? Like they made me feel very irresponsible. Like they made me feel guilty and ashamed of my body and my fertility. And so I think that there's a huge shame component baked into our modern women's healthcare system that starts very early, and it's little girls being ashamed of their periods and not talking about it. And it's, it's the curse. And so to me, the root cause sort of that we need to really dig out is that very early perception of our bodies, of our abilities, and little girls. Our target audience that we want into our centers for the first time is age 9. We want these girls into our centers by age 9 to experience our Intro to Womanhood or our Cycle Show program, where we just completely change the narrative on your abilities. Your first period, like you are now a superhero capable of giving life. And that changes everything. It's very difficult to shame a young woman who understands everything that it took to get pregnant, everything that it takes to go exactly right to achieve a pregnancy. That's a miracle. It's very difficult to shame that woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I can add there.
Yeah, please.
Just to highlight, like womanhood, I think, has become vilified. Like fertility is often seen as like this disease to be treated or suppressed, right? Pregnancy is like a tumor. Childbirth is something fearful. Like children are even seen as a liability nowadays. And so like the whole experience of what make women unique and these life-giving powers have all become shamed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask this. This is actually not in my notes, but for anybody who's listening right now and they're like, okay, I'm tuning in. I'm starting to buy into the idea that maybe it's not so good to take something like swc.inc, this birth control that, makes me have 4 periods a year. And it's no wonder we have skyrocketing incidents of cancer, especially breast cancer and so forth, right? I know that there's a direct connection to that fertility is a sign of healthiness, right? But there may be somebody listening here who says, okay, let's say I go all natural. Maybe I look at a fertility awareness based model for spacing out children or something like that. There's somebody who's listening that is scared that they're going to be the Duggar family and they're going to have 19 kids, right? And they're thinking we can't do that. Or, how is that a part of someone's journey in parenthood? Like, Leah, let me start with you and then go to Mark. Like what would you say to that person who's listening right now?
Well, gosh, okay. I can say I absolutely identify and understand. I mean, I had my first 4 babies, like I mentioned, in 5 years. And not only was I feeling ashamed, by the medical personnel that are looking at me like, okay, are you ready to get on birth control now? Like this didn't work. Like I felt that way. And I'm calculating out going, I'm 20 something years old. I'm going to have 17 children at this rate. I definitely felt that sort of fear of it. But I would highly recommend that you continue to look for the method that works for you. We had a method mismatch. I was using a method of fertility awareness that was very highly, well spoken of. It didn't work for me. It was not a good fit for me. And I wish I had felt the freedom a little bit earlier to say, I'm going to try to find a different method. Because as soon as I found the next method that did work for me, we went from 4 pregnancies in 5 years. And then our next 3 children are spaced out over 10 years, which was perfect.
Yeah.
And so there are reliable tools, just as reliable. The rates of an effective method that works for you, 99% effectiveness. It is a different lifestyle, though. It means the communication between your partner is this is a daily conversation. Are we open to a pregnancy right now? And that dictates your sexual decision making with one another in union.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and some people think when they look at a fertility awareness-based model, when you talk about method, you're talking about like there's the Marquette method, there's Creighton, there's symptothermal, right?
Yes.
And a lot of women are trying to figure out which genre of, for fertility awareness-based, fertility, right? Approach to fertility is going to work best for them. And some people are worried, oh my gosh, this is going to ruin my sex life. But actually, statistically, it shows that you come together a lot more often, right? Which is really cool.
You have a lot more sex statistically, it's showing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something owed to, it's probably due to the honeymoon effect, because there is a period within your monthly cycle that if you are trying to not conceive a baby, you will have a period of abstinence every month where you say, this is off the table. We're not trying to get pregnant right now. And boy, does that ever create longing when you can't.
Yeah.
You really want that.
Yeah, little season of absence makes the heart grow fonder. Isn't that how it works? Yeah, absolutely. Mark, what would you say to that? Like, someone's listening to this and they're thinking, oh my gosh, you're just an oppressive man who wants me barefoot in the kitchen, having all these babies. Like, go ahead and let's.
Yeah.
What would you say to that? Yeah.
It's actually, I would say it's the opposite, because when you're using kind of artificial contraceptive methods, it creates this kind of expectation of sex on demand whenever we want. And that can be very unhealthy for even a well-meaning man, if that's kind of the expectation going into a relationship. Whereas with natural fertility, like there's this awe and this reverence for the power that she has and the power that our relationship has when we come together. And so being able to say, okay, right now we need to space, and for this week, we're going to have a different kind of date night. I'm going to have to take you out, and it opens up the depth of the relationship so much more, so that when we can come together, because maybe this is not a good time for us to have children, it just makes it that much more beautiful, that much more intimate, that much more meaningful. And so that's why you see the statistics that, this improves relationships and communications and marriages. And I would say that what I was speaking to earlier, behind every abortion, there is a woman who oftentimes is being used or abused or objectified by a man in most cases, right? And so if instead we're able to shift to, and part of that too is even, women who have been told that just suppress your fertility and don't completely divorce the act of sexuality from, the possibility of life. And so suddenly when there's a baby, then it's like, how did this happen? Like this was somehow an accident, even though everything we knew what we're doing on. And so, even the respect that and the understanding women have going into the, sexual encounters, that if they're able to understand and revere what this means for them, then that extends to their expectations of how they're going to be treated by men, And so, this is actually a really profound and amazing opportunity for marriages. And like Leah said, this is something that has a 99% effective rate. Oftentimes they'll look at families that are practicing natural family planning, and sometimes we've got 6 kids. One of the things that happens is when you have this appreciation for motherhood and for womanhood and for family, usually after the first few years of spacing children, you're like, you know what? I think we are open to life, and I think this is a beautiful thing. Like, why? Yeah, we want to go through this again. That, our 6th baby, we were in a situation where I was blessed. We didn't plan this, but I got to deliver our 6th baby myself. And in all 15 years of marriage, it was the most beautiful and intimate and joyful moment of our entire marriage, was that moment. And like, the idea of missing out on that. So I think just the appreciation of fertility tends to help make some couples just more appreciative and open to life in general. But that being said, compared to artificial contraceptive rates, 96% failure rate, success rates, like not only is the failure rate higher, but that's on a per incident, like per use case. So like if you extrapolate, the failure rate of condoms, for example, over a sex life that is perhaps increased because we have this idea that, it's foolproof, you're going to have a failure, meaning you're going to have an unexpected pregnancy. And if you weren't open to life, then the backup plan is an abortion. Whereas if you have a couple who knows this is a possibility, and maybe we didn't wait during this week like we thought we would, at least you were open to that possibility in that life, you're going to be much less abortion vulnerable in that case.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Mark, like the connection between contraception and abortion. And we don't mean to be offensive. We're not saying everyone who's listening here that believes in contraception is, going to run out the door and get an abortion if they find themselves facing an unexpected pregnancy. But there's a mentality that goes with that, like an anti-child mentality. And if you follow it to its logical end, then you can end up in a dark place, right? Rather than respecting the natural God-given power of our fertility and everything that comes with motherhood and parenthood and all of that. It's a whole different attitude change, right? Around that. Absolutely.
I mean, we identify it as it's fear. It's a fear-based thinking. Like, I'm afraid of what my body is capable versus I'm in awe and I respect it. Am I afraid of it, or am I in awe and respecting it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we see this on the sidewalk. I've seen this amongst my friends who have used contraception. Some of these drugs and devices, in fact, I would say all of them except for pure barrier methods. And even then, again, there's an emotional component to that, a spiritual component to that. But these drugs and devices that are suppressing fertility, either where they're preventing ovulation or they're thinning the lining of the uterus such that it's not habitable for a newly conceived life, there are so many side effects. And to me, this is just a testament to natural law, right? That, the women who are using Depo-Provera, they're getting their Depo shot every few months. We've literally had women on the sidewalk say to us, my hair is falling out, my bones ache. I have a friend who used the birth control pill for over 20 years, and her doctor flat out told her, this is a beautiful evangelical friend of mine, doctor flat out told her that the reason that she had a clot in her lung that almost killed her was because of over 20 years of the use of that birth control method, right? I have another friend who has permanent headaches from terrible side effects from taking the pill for so many years, right? These things are real and they're happening to women. I remember talking to a woman headed into an abortion facility, Planned Parenthood facility. She was going in for a birth control issue, right? But I remember talking to her out on the sidewalk, and she said, my IUD has gotten embedded in my uterus and I'm in a ton of pain, right? Putting these unnatural objects inside of us, putting these chemicals inside of us. And so, Leah, can I have you talk about that a little bit? Then we'll go to Mark real quick, and then last couple questions after that. But can we unpack this for a second? Because I think this is so important.
Yeah. Well, and, I mentioned that the thinking tends to be a little bit more fear-based. Like, it's fear of, not being a good patient, not doing the right thing, not being responsible, there's so many societal expectations that have been placed on women. And we've been handed the solution of, through women's healthcare, this is the right thing to do. And women aren't really given any other information or any other pathway. And so we sometimes feel guilty, like I'm being bad. I'm being a bad patient. I'm not following medical advice right now. I'm doing something wrong by just learning my body and becoming more assertive and becoming more the authority of my healthcare decisions. To me, this is a major problem in the women's healthcare field all the way across. Patient autonomy is really not there. We don't trust women. We look at the research on just even women coming into the emergency rooms. This has been shown over and over again that a woman coming into the emergency room on average waits more than 15 minutes longer than a man, and her pain levels are dismissed at a higher rate than men. Women are more likely to die in an emergency room being untreated than men are. And this has been shown over and over again when we look at how women's pain is received, how women's symptoms are received over men's. We don't believe women. We don't trust them. We don't believe them. And so women have conditioned ourselves to be very good patients. We don't push back on the system very often. And it's to our own detriment. We're hurting ourselves by not asserting, I'm okay, I'm good. This is the right path for myself. And so we're just really trying to help women understand their options here. There are other viable options that are safer and more healthy for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, your thoughts on that?
I mean, just listening to what Leah says, I think of a lot of times the experiences that my wife has had going to, her women's healthcare appointments and just coming back so frustrated and just really, traumatized emotionally oftentimes. And it comes down to that, feeling that they are not listening. Like I'm trying to say, like, what is best for me, what I intuitively know about my body. And they're dismissing it because it's, it's just easier and more profitable perhaps if we just prescribe a pill, if we just suppress this thing. And so there's not an actual listening of actual individualized care. And that's the really what it comes down to with fertility awareness is taking the time to educate, taking the time to listen for that, so that every woman is going to have a very individualized care. And that's not as profitable in the current healthcare system. That takes more time than a lot of healthcare practitioners are willing to invest in individual patient appointments. And so there's that reality. But this, I mean, what is healthcare? Healthcare is supposed to be, supporting and helping the natural functions of our body. And as Leah had, kind of said before, the phrase women's healthcare in modern America has kind of come to mean how do we alter, suppress, and destroy the normal healthy functions of your natural body? And in no other area is that considered healthcare. And it's just nuts. And that's how, I mean, ultimately how abortion has come into our culture is through this vehicle of women's healthcare. So, if we're just saying, well, we'll help you with pregnancy tests and ultrasounds and some diapers, but then send you, and if we're asking women not to go through with an abortion, we're asking her to go through a childbirth. So to me, the opposite of an abortion center is a birth center. I mean, this is someplace that's actually going to help her with the entire prenatal care and childbirth and postpartum experience. And then you have a place to go back to for your annual exams and bring your daughters to for their education and checkups. And that's, if we're ever going to replace something like Planned Parenthood, then that's the scope to which we need to be rising.
That's the remedy. And it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. The other thing that occurred to me too is, why are we trying to make women men? Like suppressing our natural fertility as if making us better, so to speak, to compete with men, say in the workplace or whatever, right? I'm on a team right now. I lead Sidewalk Advocates for Life. Our national team is about 19 people. It just so happens at this particular phase in our history, it's all women. And we have overlapping maternity leave and different things, and we've learned to roll with that. But the genius of women, even in the workplace and different sectors of society, it's so needed. I was on an airplane the other day, as I often am. And I was seated next to this gentleman, and he mentioned to me the movie Zero Dark 30 about how, through intelligence gathering and the genius of our military, we caught Osama bin Laden and fought back against Al-Qaeda and so forth. And he said, it's not a surprise to me that the people who found him were women because of their natural intuition. It's kind of like at every turn they were getting cut off by other men saying, oh no, like you're going down a rabbit trail here, you're doing this, you're doing that. And it's just such a little thing here that I'm mentioning, but he seemed to sit back in admiration for that natural God-given creative intuition that literally brought us a huge victory here in this country. So anyways, it's just, we could go on and on about that, right? But there's, I think to your point that was made so well towards the beginning of the podcast, there's a design here, a complementarity, a uniqueness of man and woman and mother and father that is so important and so intrinsic to the human family and to human flourishing. And that when we stop fighting against that and we instead support it and celebrate it, then all of a sudden doors open, something beautiful happens. It leads to greater intimacy. It leads to greater peace, right? And I think that that's what we're missing so much in today's culture. Gosh, again, so much more we could unpack here. All right. Well, we sit in post-Roe America. We're about to mark the 3rd anniversary of the Dobbs decision that overturned the infamous Roe versus Wade decision, that abortion decision that imposed, again, abortion on demand in all 50 states for nearly 50 years. And so I'd love to hear from each of you your advice to getting from post road to abortion free. And I know you may be laughing going, well, Lauren, if we knew that, we would be doing it, right? But I know with where you sit and having these insights, you also, again, have part of that remedy. And then I also want to talk about chemical abortion a little bit. So Leah, let me go to you and then to Mark. And Mark, I know you're doing some special things to combat chemical abortion in borderland Texas, New Mexico. So Leah, what would you say to that? Like, how do we help this culture and move towards making abortion more unthinkable, of course, eventually illegal as well?
Well, I think it comes back to that idea of, a fearless sort of future that a woman can envision her life with a baby within it, that we can reduce that fear, that we can say, this isn't the end of your education. This isn't the end of your career. We need to be really pushing for these policies that support motherhood. It has to be a viable lifestyle if we really want to make abortion unthinkable. If she really is going to be punished for her pregnancy, it makes it very clear what her decision is going to be. If she's going to get kicked out of school and can't live on campus housing, well, okay, that becomes an easy decision. And so we have to reverse these sort of rules and policies and laws that penalize women for becoming pregnant, because like I'm saying, this is an incredible accomplishment. And I'm hoping that more of this emphasis, even just on the declining birth rate, the fertility rate in our country, that we begin to really emphasize the value of pregnancy, that we can help women to see you're doing something good for humanity and for society and for our economy. This is something good and beautiful, not just for you, but for everybody. This child is a gift to everyone. So I think that major shift in our language and in our policies to make this fearless for them is critical. We have to do that.
I love that, envisioning a future where the children are welcome. They're welcome. Right. Amen. In every sector of society, they're celebrated. Mark, post road to abortion free, what would you say?
Just to build on that, I mean, that ultimately is we have to create a culture where womanhood and everything that comes with that, to include motherhood, is there's a space for that and it's celebrated. And I think there's a lot of things we take for granted that, when during the Industrial Revolution, when women were really pushed and accelerated into the workplace, it was a workplace that was designed for men, and we never really went back to change that. And so there's this expectation that you have to conform. And so even like I would say, if there's pro-life business owners that are listening, like rethink, like, what does this look like to actually support womanhood? For a while, we had in-house childcare for our female employees to bring their children to work, and we had a preschool teacher and a curriculum, and it was beautiful, and they were able to not have to choose between their job and their child. And I think that's something that the future, like a pro-life future, has, is the expectation that if this is a job where we're going to have women, we need to be able to support mothers. And we even talked about exploring like a menstrual menopausal leave policy, that you shouldn't have to use sick time for something that's not an illness if you need to take a day off every month, right? That's part of the reality that comes with who you are. And so that is what I think a pro-life future post-Roe looks like, is really shifting the culture and really rethinking a lot that we take for granted of what are the actual implications of that.
Yeah. And Mark, even from your sidewalk outreach to your maternity home to the Guiding Star Center, like, talk to me a little bit more about how this vision has touched every aspect of your ministry, even your outreach.
Sure.
On the sidewalk.
Well, I mean, just the attitude when we approach women and talk to them and say, hey, we understand that like you're going through a lot, that there's a lot to be, that's fearful right now, that you're overwhelmed, that, do you have another child? Like you probably went through, a lot of women who've been through birth traumas and postpartum struggles, they don't really realize it because that's kind of the norm. And so they just think that was the normal motherhood experience. So, I can't do that more. So just helping to kind of, meet them where they're at, empathize and recognize, like, we see the struggles, we hear the struggles that kind of the world is dismissing as the norm. I even point to in former times, like women were around pregnancy and childbirth and breastfeeding with their extended families and siblings. We've become so isolated now in our family units, in our sibling size. The number of children is decreasing. The generational gap between age and parents and children is increasing, and so we just don't. We're not around pregnancy and childbirth and breastfeeding as much. It's tucked away. Like even breastfeeding now is like go hide that, like go sit in that pod or something like that, and it's just become taboo. I mean, I think of in Austin a few years back, there was a woman who was kicked out of a store for breastfeeding her child, and of all places, it was a Victoria's Secret. Like it's okay for women to be sexualized in these posters up on the wall, but God forbid she's feeding her child for like the natural intended purpose. And so wow. So being able to use that type of language has been game changing. They're listening and they're saying, you're saying something different. You're talking about me and my identity and who I am in a way that, the abortion providers definitely isn't, that even their OBGYN isn't. Otherwise they probably wouldn't be here in the first place. And so having that language, and then being able to say, this is where you're at and we're going to help you. And so kind of, you alluded to some of the stuff we're doing to combat the chemical abortion, and it ties into that because for the last 2 years, we've really been struggling on the state line between New Mexico and Texas, where 15,000 women a year now are driving from Texas to the state of New Mexico, where abortion remains unrestricted up to delivery. And there's abortion centers set up right on the state line now, right next to marijuana shops. And so they're coming and they're so invested in their decision and the time and the money they've invested to get here and make this decision that it's the least receptive we've ever seen women coming to the facilities. And for 2 years, we've been really, the number of conversations and turnaways have just plummeted. And so right now, we're really only able to talk to them after they come out and they've already taken the abortion pill. And so just in the last couple of months, one of my president, Jessica Cifuentes, at our Guiding Star Center, we have miscarriage kits. So if a mom is going through a natural miscarriage, to educate her about the process that's about to happen. My wife and I, we've been through 2 natural miscarriages, and I wish we had something like this to kind of prepare us for what was to come, to allow us to collect the baby in a way that says, this is what to expect. This is okay. This is the steps to take. This is where to come, and to give you that comfort and reassurance through such a difficult time. So she had this inspiration that, these are women who've already taken the abortion pill. In most cases, they're flying back home. They're going through labor alone in their bathroom, and the abortion facility is lying to them, saying it's just going to be like a heavy period, and just sit on the toilet, don't look, and flush. That's pretty much what they're being directed. So she instead is reaching out to them and saying, hey, we know you've already taken the abortion pill. They haven't really prepared you for what's about to happen. Here's a kit, and it's a whole collection kit to take this home. And this is the step this is what's going to happen. This is the process that's going to happen. And here are the tools to help you collect the child, to recover the child, to evaluate your own health, make sure that you're not, that you can measure your blood loss. So, when it's a medical emergency. And what's happening is by walking through this process with her and putting these tools in her hand in compassion, suddenly she's like rethinking this whole thing, and she's saying, wait a minute, like I didn't really think this far. They didn't tell me this. Do I still want to go through with this? And then we say, by the way, there's something called abortion pill reversal, and we can get you progesterone. And we've had just in the last couple of months, a huge increase and surge of women now seeking the progesterone treatment to reverse the effects of the abortion pill. Even for those who did continue the abortion, if at the very least, they're able to take this kid home in a way to recover the remains of the child for a more dignified end. I mean, so many of these babies are just getting flushed down the toilet. It's a hard reality to talk about. If we can at least, that's a corporal work of mercy, to bury the dead. So if at the very least we can help her recognize and honor her child, the chances also in that case is she's probably not going to make this decision a second time, because she humanized this child. And so it's also a way to connect with her and say, hey, if you feel like this was a lack of informed consent, or you went through any kind of malpractice or patient abandonment by these providers who just kind of gave you this pill and sent you on their way, you probably could get some legal support for that as well, and making sure that she's able to get that support as well as her medical support, and we give her a blood loss measurement chart and a way to evaluate to make sure that that's not too much. So that's been really game changing just recently in the last couple of months. And it's a hard reality. it's crazy that this is the state of women's healthcare in America, that this is necessary. But I think that that's a really necessary short-term solution, especially with this chemical abortion crisis. There's been brainstorming sessions where we've said, okay, women who are getting mailed the chemical abortion pill in states, if they can't, they're not getting these kits on the sidewalk. What can we mail these kits to them so they can at least know what to expect and, know about the reversal process and things like that. So, really early stages, but I think this is something that we as a movement need to recognize is a crisis, and, how can we respond to it?
Yeah. Let me ask you a question, Mark, like just for the sake of discussion, not to put you on the spot at all, but especially for those who do sidewalk outreach. So you're saying like, hey, when she has said, I've taken the first pill, right? And a lot of folks don't realize the chemical abortion regimen is often a 2 or more pill process, right? The first pill blocks progesterone, which is feeding the baby, and the second pill expels. So mail order chemical abortion, or otherwise when women get chemical abortion and complete the process at home, their bathroom has now been turned into an abortion facility in effect, right? And they're having to go through this alone. And of course, now there's trauma attached to their bathroom, right? We haven't even gotten to that. But so you're saying, hey, there's an opportunity here to hand them this kit and get them thinking, right? What would you say to somebody who says, well, if we're to focus on one message, shouldn't we just be focusing on abortion pill reversal, as opposed to the kit, and then that message coming in behind it? Again, just for the sake of discussion, I'd love for you to speak to that. Like,
absolutely.
Some people would say, well, gosh, is that a hard thing because you don't want to be handing them the tools to complete this process. You want to save that baby, right? So,
and that was our first concern. Our first concern was, is this in any way, facilitating or saying, we're okay with you completing this? We've talked to, very Orthodox priests, Catholic priests. We've talked to the National Catholic Bioethics Board about this, and the reality is, for the last 2 years, we have been trying that approach of saying, hey, let's talk about APR. And over the last 2 years, we've had a couple cases. In the last 2 months, we've had 7. And so just the numbers alone. And the reason why is because if we're just coming at the conversation as abortion pill reversal, we're still coming at her of, we're trying to change your mind. We're against the decision you made, and we're trying to change your mind even now. Whereas what we're doing right now is we're saying, hey, like, we want to help you. And we care about you. In fact, the name of the kits, we call it a CARE kit, which stands for Chemical Abortion Recovery and Evaluation. So recovering the baby and evaluating your health. And so we're saying, like, they're not really and a lot of women, and even especially the men, interestingly, have been really eager to come over and learn more about this process and how to be there for the woman to support her, because they're not getting told anything. And as we're talking to them, they're starting to ask the question, why didn't they tell us this? Like, why didn't they tell us this in there? And they're starting to put to it, like, these people care about me, like, more than they just took $700 and gave us a pill and said it's, flush, and meanwhile, these people are actually preparing us, giving us tools, and it opens the door for the option counseling just in a different way that it used to, where now that we've said this is what's going to happen to your body, we're telling them the truth. We're just saying, like, this is a decision you made, like, at least be ready for it. Have an educated, informed consent. And now they're like, hold on a minute, tell me more about that reversal thing that you mentioned earlier, right? Like, they were closed to the idea of reversal because that's just you trying to change my mind. But now it's like, you care about me, you're meeting me where I'm at, you're educating me, and suddenly I'm rethinking the decision I made. Right. And so
interesting.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, so interesting. And, this whole process that you talk about, like, caring for the patient. I met a woman on the sidewalk. It was actually last Friday in Boulder, Colorado. I was there for a summit. And the woman we met was from Houston, Texas. An abortion fund put her and her boyfriend on a bus all the way up to Boulder, Colorado. She took the chemical abortion regimen. She took the first pill, and then the second pill was to be taken 48 hours later. She was on the bus, like a 15-hour bus ride home. Ugh. And for those of us who have gone through a miscarriage, I can't even get my mind around that. And this is often an experience that's much more horrific than a natural miscarriage, right? This woman, and I warned her, I said, you're going to end up in the ER, sweetheart. You might see the baby. I said that at the right time. I didn't say that right away, right? And sure enough, she texted me right after I checked on her again, and she says, I'm in the ER in Houston. And the next day, she was having such bad stomach pains. The clinic in Boulder told her to go back again a second time. But we're hearing this more and more. The Ethics and Public Policy Center just came out with a study that nearly 1 in 9 women are having some sort of severe event that is sending them to the emergency room. Again, what a testimony to natural law. Wow. I just love that we're innovating and we're thinking here in post-Roe America. Trying to keep up with the abortion industry is no small feat, especially with these abortion funds that can hand women. I mean, we have another woman that we helped, $22,000 trip to go from DFW to DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C. to abort her 26-week-old son. I mean, handed to her. And so we have to be innovating and thinking creatively on the sidewalk. And I so appreciate you guys doing that. We're learning from you. We're learning from the Southwest Coalition for Life. Is there anything more that you want to add about that, Mark? I want to make sure I didn't cut you off. So, yeah.
No, Leah might be able to share some insight because, we started collaborating and, is this something that, even a guiding star should be doing? And, interestingly, we have a little booklet that, helps to it's like an instruction booklet, educates her about the pill, obviously in a way that it's not coming across like we're okay with this, but it's just educational and letting her know where to go for resources and help. And on one page, it even says, like, if you're going through this process, you need to be educated about what you're going to see and how to identify the placenta versus the baby versus clots. And so we actually have photos of essentially what's abortion victim imagery in a way that we normally wouldn't use that on the sidewalk. But in this context, like, can you speak to that, Leah? Like how is this kit and that type of education like relevant in this context?
Yeah. So when Jessica first reached out to us a few months ago, when this idea kind of dawned upon her of can we use the miscarriage kits, and she had reached out to say, does this work under Guiding Stars branding and under what we're doing? And I said, absolutely, because this is real information. This is reality. This is medical information that you deserve to have. Like, it's your birthright to know how to track your fertility. It's also your right to understand what's happening in a developing pregnancy. And so as the kit was being created and the use of, graphic images, this is the most appropriate use I have ever seen, because it's telling a woman, okay, you're 8 weeks pregnant. This is what you're looking for. And all of a sudden she's paying attention in a way she never has before. This is real to her. And it also really just brings home the increased risk and danger as these babies get bigger. I don't think the abortion industry is being honest with women about the increasing risk and danger the larger these babies are becoming. A 16-week miscarriage is a very traumatic experience. And so to just treat like a 16-week abortion, a chemical abortion, as no big deal, to just say it's a heavy period, that is absolutely a lie. We are not doing women any service like here. In my mind, this is a medical negligence. You are not giving these patients, the ability to even make full consent when you don't tell them the truth.
Yeah.
So, and this is a short-term Band-Aid on a long-term issue that we need. Ultimately, Guiding Star centers in every city and this education worldview, eventually abortion will become unthinkable, right? But in the short term, this is a reality that's happening. And the alternative to not giving her this kit and this education is she ignores us, she goes home, she's going through this traumatic labor by herself in her bathroom. She could bleed out and die. The baby's getting flushed down the toilet like that. That's the reality of what's happening right now, thousands of times a day. So at the very least, we could say, okay, let's respond to this immediate crisis. This is not to say we're just going to keep doing this. Like, we have to work to stop this chemical abortion crisis, But in the meantime, if we can get this in her hand, I think it's a good result.
Well, and I'll even be the first to say there's a reason why they call sidewalk advocates the last line of defense. And again, don't hear what I'm not saying. We believe that as we serve that woman on the sidewalk, and yes, we may intercept a mother and encourage her to choose life and spare a child from death and her from trauma, we have done something powerful there that has a ripple effect that may prevent future abortions, that is a testimony to the true meaning of pro-life as we serve her so well and get her the resources that she needs. But we do all have to look at this as a people of faith and conscience and back it up and say education is the first step in all of this. And if we can educate people on the glory and the beauty and the majesty of their bodies and of the natural design of man and woman and mother and father and the human family, we don't even need to get to the abortion facility. That's the ultimate goal. So,
Amen.
So important. Well, I'd love to hear from each of you how people can connect with you and also how they can bring a Guiding Star Center to their city. So, let's go Mark and then Leah. So Mark, how can people connect with you and the Southwest Coalition for Life if they want to see an example of a Guiding Star Center? Maybe they want to stop by. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the easiest place to go is swc.inc. That's southwestcoalition.inc, like incorporated, INC, southwest.inc, and that'll link out to our 4 different divisions, including our Guiding Star Center. And our Guiding Star Center in El Paso, we have our upstairs classrooms. We have a little coffee shop now. We have all of our medical space. And then downstairs, we also now have a birth center with midwives that we're working with that is active and amazing just for the last few months. And so if you're in the area, absolutely reach out. And I'd love to give anyone a tour. But you can at least see a little bit of a video tour and some more information at swc.inc.
Awesome. All right, Leah, how do we bring Guiding Star to our community?
Yeah, and that is the goal. I mean, we have 7 locations currently in 5 states, and we want to be in all 50 states, in the next decade, because that's what's critical. If you're actually going to compete with Planned Parenthood, you have to have the physical locations to compete with Planned Parenthood. And so we would love to talk with you more about bringing a Guiding Star Center to your location. Currently, we are focusing on our flagship corporately owned center in Tampa, Florida. Our birth center has opened in Tampa, Florida. And so if you're in the Tampa area, that's probably the best place to come and tour another one of our locations besides Mark's location in El Paso. To contact us, it's guidingstarproject.com. You can go onto our website, hit the contact email, interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, all over. You can find me at Leah at wholisticfeminism.com as well, is where you can connect with me directly. We are in the process right now of taking applications for our first franchisees to our birth center model that we are piloting. And so those franchise options will be opening in the next year. And we hope to see a lot more Guiding Star birth centers opening up.
So awesome. Well, Godspeed. This is awesome. And again, as a sidewalk advocate, when we have a Guiding Star Center near us, it's just a no-brainer. We can send any type of client that Planned Parenthood is servicing to a Guiding Star Center, and you guys are going to take such good care of her or him, right? And we're just so thankful. Gosh, I just pray that these centers spread all across the United States and the world. I really do. There's just such a I don't know. I'm going to get off this podcast and think about how I can help more, because we need these centers in every city all over, covering the United States and beyond. It's so important because I see it. I see the crisis at the abortion facility. I see the breakdown of the family. I see the confusion, the pain, the hurt, the trauma. And it takes a village sometimes, right? Like you said, we're so isolated. We need to come together as communities to better serve these women and these families. And we're failing right now. And Planned Parenthood is making money off of it. And that just disgusts me, Me too. Oh, so good. Well, thank you guys so much for all that you're doing. Look forward to being in touch. Thanks, guys.
Likewise, thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Lauren.
My pleasure. Awesome. Okay. Wow. Chew on that, right? Here's a closing thought. You wouldn't think modern society would need a reminder about the natural connection between sex and childbirth, but here we are. And when we start splitting them up, chaos results, right? People love to say consent to sex is not necessarily consent to pregnancy. And my response to that is, what? That's like saying consent to eating isn't necessarily consent to going to the bathroom. If you engage in a certain behavior, it's at least expected that once in a while you may see the result. It's actually a sign of health. It's natural, right? I think it's our job as believers, as people of faith and conscience, of logic and science and reason, right, to take these principles of holistic feminism that we've been talking about today, educate our friends and neighbors, and supplant the Planned Parenthood abortion empire, who most recently bragged in their latest report about killing over 400,000 preborn children, right? Supplanting them with holistic healthcare that provides for women and children and families at every stage. A woman is so much more than the sum of her biological parts, and our culture needs to recognize that. May we celebrate the whole woman and the incredible power she holds within her. This isn't only good for women, by the way, it's good for everybody. Like Mark said so well, like protecting women and her natural health is really taking care of the human family. It's good for men, it's good for children, it's good for all of us, the world around us. So I just want to encourage all of us to never stop witnessing to the beauty of natural fertility, faith, and family. Our world is more hungry for it than we could ever know. All right. Well, with that, thank you again so much for joining me for another episode of the Lauren Musica Show. We'll be back here next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central on Facebook Live, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Thanks so much, everybody.